Sounded better.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the September 2025 DAS meeting. And here's everybody in attendance. Hello. Oh, and Jeff over here. All right, very good. All right, so first item, do we have any new members? You'd like to introduce yourselves? It's been a few months, so
Yeah.
there could be a few.
I don't know if I should stand.
You should.
Yeah, go for it.
How you doing, everybody?
Hello.
Scott Drosbach, new member. Excited to be here. Excited to see what it's all about.
Recruited at our outreach event at Woodside Creamery. So.
Wow. So how much ice cream did it take?
One scoop in, and I was like,
Very good. Very good.
Welcome.
Do we have any other new members? Yeah, over here.
Yeah, Troy Birdwell. I've been just coming to some of the Tuesdays, so thanks for being so welcoming.
You didn't take any ice cream to get fried, huh?
Other new members? Yeah, no question.
I think I'm a new member. The check hasn't cleared yet. They gave it in the application tonight, so maybe that qualifies. I'm Cal Patsy. I live in Okeson, about 2 miles from here. I've known about the Mantuba and the society and the group for many, many years, and a few weeks ago finally came out.
Awesome.
Thank you. Very nice. Any other new members? Anyone who didn't introduce themselves at a previous meeting? Good. All righty. Next item, we have a Titan Transit coming up this weekend for those that aren't aware. We had a bunch of them this year, but they were at crazy times in the morning. This one's the best in terms of timing because it's not as late. It's only 1 to 3 a.m. It's a little bit better. But the other ones have been much later in the night. Some of them have been much, much later in the night.
Safe for the
Yeah.
egress.
So this one is a little bit nicer in terms of the timing, and the weather right now looks spectacular. By the way, if you don't see Titan transiting Saturn, it'll be like 2 decades before you can see it again. So check it out.
It's actually both Titan and in shadow.
Yeah, Titan and a shadow.
Unique is
Right.
it's almost side by side, you see
Mhm.
the moon and its shadow.
So definitely worth checking out.
Consider horizons. It starts 45 degrees above the horizon, which is pretty high up, but plan accordingly if you intend to watch it.
Yeah, and of course, it is kind of small compared to the planet. Some of Jupiter's moons are bigger compared to the planet. And, you see them much more often as a result. But, it'd be really nice to see if it works out. So I'm at least going to get up and take a look, maybe even take like a time lapse, take a few videos along the way and maybe put them together. That's my hope. Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
The wind's out of the north, and
Okay.
it's gonna be foreseen.
But it's still worth trying.
It often happens with these specific time events that things aren't quite right, but
Okay.
it's worth looking anyway. The easier it is, the better it is just to take a look and see.
You can roll out of bed, take a look, and if it's not, you go back to bed.
Just put up a real big windscreen and that will save everything.
There you go. Really big windscreen,
Yeah,
like
like
to the
200
atmosphere,
miles long.
up to space. Absolutely. All right, next we have the AP SIG. You want to tell us about that?
Okay, sure. And so this coming Saturday night, we have the September AP SIG meeting, which is going to be a combination picnic, meeting, and star party. And the weather now for Saturday night is forecast to be pretty much clear. So that's going to be on site at Rick Spencer's. The announcement's already gone out over groups.io. If anyone was interested and they didn't already get the announcement, give me your email and I'll send you the announcement again. Okay, so, and the special topic presentation during the meeting will be on computers for imaging. I'll be giving that. We'll also have our usual presentation of astrophotos. And there's going to be some great food. We have smoked pork ribs as well as chicken from Letty's Kitchen. It's buffet, so it's sizing up nice. Any questions about that?
Open to anybody, correct?
It's open to, yeah, anybody who wants to.
So basically, if you want to come.
But there, it is, the meeting itself is kind of
Ice cream, too.
photography centric.
There we go.
But if you want to learn about building computers, you might come out of this for that.
Certainly.
Meeting first.
We eat first, have the meeting and then set up for anybody who wants to image can image overnight. They can set up a tent if they want, there'll be access to the restroom all night. So.
Oh, where's it?
And it's at Rick Spencer's, 16 Hamer Road, and it's technically an Elkton mailing address, but it's farther to the west of Elkton by quite a bit.
Good for you for doing Letty's Chicken.
Yeah.
The best.
Well, come on out and learn about astrophotography. That'd be cool. All right, next thing we have the book club. Mary, you want to tell us about that?
Yes, good evening, everyone. You're all invited and your guests to the September book club meeting. It will be held on Thursday, September 25th via Zoom at 7 p.m. We will be discussing The Astronomer's Library by Professor Karen Masters. Karen is a professor of astronomy at our local Haverford College, and she will be joined by Sarah Horowitz, who is the curator of rare books and manuscripts at Haverford College Libraries. So we will be discussing Karen's book and their Haverford College's collection of rare astronomy books and manuscripts. And we have invited the Haverford, Swarthmore, and Bryn Mawr College students to join us for the meeting. The meeting will be led by DAS book club member Brad Wolven. He recommended the book to the club. If I may, for just a minute, I wanted to let you know in October, we will be discussing Black Hole, How an Idea Abandoned by Newtonians, Hated by Einstein, and Gambled on by Hawking Became Loved by Marcia Butusiak. And Marcia will be with us. She's from MIT. Our Thursday, November 20 meeting, I had to reschedule it. We were going to discuss the Operation Moonwatch, which was integral to the history of the DAS. We have postponed that meeting to December of 2026 to dovetail with the DAS anniversary and the donation of the first library book to the DAS library. We have in its stead taken the suggestion of Dave Hunter, and we have added to our calendar Starlight Nights, The Adventures of a Stargazer by Leslie C. Peltier, who is one of our American amateur astronomer extraordinaire. The Astronomical League has a Peltier Award. And I was able to convince David Levy, who wrote the foreword to the last edition of Peltier's memoir, to join us for our discussion. So I hope everybody will come out to have the opportunity to spend some time with David Levy talking about Peltier, who is one of his heroes. And then in December, we'll have Christine Larson, who was just up at Stellafane, delivering a speech there, and she will be discussing Tolkien. She's an expert in Tolkien and a professor of astronomy at University of Connecticut. So the calendar is posted to our website. Again, your guests are invited to join us. And Don Nab will be leading the December meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other announcements? That's all I have down. I don't think so. All right, if not, we're ready to proceed with our main program, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in a terribly predictable and boring move, it's September, so the meeting topic is what I did this summer. The topic is boring, but the presentations are going to be really awesome. So we have various club members sharing different activities and awesome stuff that they were up to over the summer. And Jeff, as requested, you get to go first. We do have 6 or 7 people tonight. So at the 10-minute mark, I'm gonna kind of start to give you the evil eye. At about 15 minutes, I'm gonna start clearing my throat rather loudly. And much beyond that, I'm gonna get the hook. But yeah, Jeff, you are, oh, wait, hang on. I forget which one. Do you know which, I've got two that are,
Oh, yeah,
that's yours.
No. Wow, it's curses.
Yeah.
You're opening the correct one.
Yeah. that's
Okay,
right.
we're good then. All right,
So this is.
Jeff, all yours.
Yeah, this is more than the summer adventure, but since we're talking about.
Wait, are we,
So make sure you're,
I don't think we're sharing, are we? Were we not sharing this whole time?
yeah, you should share now.
I thought I was.
I turned it off because we were pointing the camera at people.
Oh. We've only been doing this for 5 years. You'd think I'd know how to,
And I would do this for one, so up above,
I'm just gonna pin and then do this.
yep, that's good.
And Jeff, if you can always move this around if it's covering.
Yeah. So again, this is more than one summer adventure. This is 2 summer adventure and a little bit more than that. But I thought it might be worth listening to or showing you. All right, so why build a 10-inch reflector? Well, because it was there, so to speak. I wanted a telescope. Well, first of all, go to the bottom of the slide. I've always wanted to build a telescope. There we go. Just wanted to build a telescope. I have a sea star, as many people know, but I really would like to have something a little more, well, I'd like to build something. So I'd like it to be large enough to view the major planets. I'd like it to be about an F6. So it's about 60 inches long, so it fits me and it fits, as you're going to see, in my car. Okay, I really found out when I borrowed the 6-inch Orion that it sits too low to the ground. It's hard on my back. I don't want a little telescope like that. So I began to get some rough ground rules from borrowing things. Skipping ahead, it turned out it was designed to be built so that the tube separates into 2 parts. You'll see. And therefore, I can put them in the back of my SUV. All right. And I wanted, this is probably a hopeful thing. I wanted it to be something that I could build out of available materials if possible. And I wanted it to be a reasonably modest cost. It's reasonably modest cost, and it was pretty much built out of this, that, and the other thing. Okay. So just everybody knows what this is, but you're going to see I'm going to walk through them real quick, and I got to keep going because I'm going to run out of my 10 minutes. So you got the mirror, the support for the mirror, the tube, secondary mirror and the spider to hold it, the focuser, the mount, which is a tube cradle, altitude bearings, a rocker box, and a ground board, and then the infamous finder scope. Okay, now it's important to note that I built this so that I could take it apart and transport it, and none of the parts by themselves are particularly heavy or awkward. The bottom tube is probably the worst part. And I modeled it off of a telescope that Dave had built. It's an 8-inch, which is very similar, but this was a bit larger. Anyway, okay, so the mirror. So as it turns out, available materials. Dave had a 10-inch Pyrex blank. But I want to point out, if I didn't finish the telescope, he gets it back. Okay, so if I finish the mirror and don't finish the scope, he gets a finished mirror back. So there was okay. Yeah. All right. So anybody who's interested, the grinding kit came from gotgrit.com. It's the usual stuff. It's 80, 120, 220. Then it's basically aluminum oxide, and then CEO at 1 micron for the end. Bought pitch because it made a pitch lap, and bought polishing pads to use before that. Right, and that cost about $120. All right, so as many people have heard me on many Tuesday nights with my symphony of grinding on that 55-gallon drum, it was basically grind with a glass tool. Okay, so for the 10-inch mirror to be an F6, it needed to be concave
where, this is the part I think is kind of interesting, the center of it, the concave was only going to be 0.1 inch deep. And as it turns out, the shop has a drill bit, which is 0.104 inches in diameter. So it was easy to try to figure out when I could stop grinding for shape. And I used an old straight edge ruler that I happen to have. And yes, once upon a time, I worked for DuPont. Okay, so once the mirror got past all of those grits, okay, it went on to polishing pads. Here's the beautiful drum. And oh, by the way, anybody who's missing my grinding symphony, okay, I've got a 2-minute recording that's going to be on iTunes, so you can buy it about 20 minutes. Okay.
On a cosmic relaxation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I've got to keep moving, polishing pad.
Early on, it
So
was crunch. Later on, it got nice and tuned up.
So polishing proceeded, and we got to the point with a lot of input from Dave that it was time to see if it in fact would focus. So, all right. So how did we decide if it would focus? We took it outside on an afternoon and lined it up against the
Sundial.
sundial, and if this works.
So we're going to show that this mirror is focusing. So Mark is going to turn the camera on the back of the sundial, and I'm going to move closer. Too close, and you see it focus back out. So it back out.
Wait till it bursts into flames.
I think it's unique that sundial needs to work. I'll watch now.
Right about 60 inches.
Yeah, I think it was 58 inches. We were looking for 60.
Nice.
And that's about an inch in diameter. You want it? Okay. Cool. So anyway, we used a very sophisticated technique to determine if the mirror would focus. Okay, so beyond that, we wouldn't go to the polish at the end of it without knowing that it focused and that the concave was right. So pitch lap, figuring the mirror, right? The mirror gets a whole lot of attention, you notice in all these slides. Made a pitch lap, which I've never done before. It was very interesting to do. Okay, it's used because it conforms to the shape of the mirror, right? Corrects the shape of the mirror to a parabola. Okay, but it's got to become spherical first. The barrel was covered, and this is just a quick aside. I covered the barrel here at this point with just a garbage bag, because that barrel, you'll notice from the previous picture, is kind of rusty. This way, I wouldn't be screwing up the mirror by introducing shards and pieces of rust and so forth off. Just an aside, okay, but seemed to work. Okay, so the testing is in two parts. First, there's a Foucault testing apparatus with a Raunchy test. So basically, it's using the pitch lap of 1 micron CEO, polish the mirror, work the mirror. And that went on for a while, we'll say. All right, but anyway, this is how you're going to see you get to show that the defects are removed and you got a spherical shape. All right, so beautiful. All right, so it was basically work the mirror for 15 minutes and test it. Work the mirror for 15 minutes and test it. That happened over several days. In the beginning, the mirror is certainly not what you want, because you can see that the lines are curved and you can see a big hole in the middle. Okay. I think Dave called it like a pit or something.
Well, I called it a crater.
The crater, that's
That's a step up.
Yeah.
and you have no idea how many times I get past 15 minutes. No, still a crater. No, still a crater. But you can see it gets better slowly and gets even better. And then what you want are straight lines. Okay, so that took, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 days, 15-minute intervals for 2 or 3 hours at a time, something like that. Okay, so the second part of it now is to set up a double bandpass autocollimation test. All right, again, the mirror is polished for 15-minute intervals. This is slightly different. Here is the mirror. the lasers here in the middle you can see now the yards or the measure at 58 inches. And this is a flat mirror. So the laser goes in, back to the flat mirror, the light, and then back into this. So from the other perspective, there's the flat mirror at the other end. So again, it's grind and grind, or polish and polish it out of the grind. But in this case, this just kept going until it was right. I don't know, it took 3-4 hours maybe. And I don't have intermediate pictures that are any good because this was really hard to get this picture on my iPhone because the red laser is so bright. Yeah. But you can see the lines are straight. You got what you want. So now it would be ready to send out to get it surfaced. But you don't want to send it out to get it surfaced until you know it's actually going to focus on something decent, like you're going to see the moon. So now I have to build the telescope tube around it and take it out for a practice spin, so to speak. All right, so the mirror support, I did this the easy way. Etsy sold craft plywood circles, 10-inch and 12-inch. I needed 10-inch for the mirror and a 12-inch for the tube. Okay, so here it sits on well, here's the support. These are 3 bolts with springs in between the 2 circles. You're going to see how they're, and then on the back side, there are knurled screws, so you'll be able to adjust the mirror. This is now it painted with the mirror sitting on it. This one doesn't have the, as it turned out, I didn't get a picture where the clips are in place to hold the mirror. These are corner brackets, which were used to mount the tube onto that. We'll see. All right. So here's later on, I got a picture of it. So here are the knurled knobs to allow you to adjust the mirror, right? And then these are 3 feet. These are 3 feet. Okay. And it turns out it's nice when you take it off of the rocker mount, you can set it down on the 3 rubber feet and it doesn't scratch or muck up the bottom of the tube and you don't screw up your adjustment. All right. All right, so the tube, quickly, because this one really won't take long. Again, usable materials, concrete tubes from Lowe's or Home Depot. These were 12 by 48-inch concrete tubes cut in 33-inch lengths, okay, and double holed. The idea was to have the bottom tube have an inside tube, and then the top tube have an inside tube at the top, so you could drop the top tube onto the bottom tube. All right. The glued in place, 5 coats of water-soluble polyurethane are applied inside and out. That seals it, gives it some rigidity. Then the inside was painted flat black spray paint, or with flat black spray paint. The outside was painted with gray automotive primer. And then, as you'll see, with 3 coats of an exterior grade gloss latex that was rolled on, which actually worked out very well. So here's cutting the inside tube. Here's gluing that inside tube into the outside tube. Here's the bottom, which has the inside tube only at the top. And here's the top, which has got no inside tube on the bottom part. All right, here's painted gray, here's painted blue. After that, and then obviously you need a secondary. So the secondary is basically homemade. Dave had this part, and this was made with brass strips, washers, screws, nuts, and just kind of cobbled together, but over 2 or 3 days. Okay. All right. A hole saw for like a doorknob was used to cut the hole for the focuser. The focuser was purchased. It's a Crayford focuser. It's 2-inch, capable with a 1.25-inch adapter. I bought that online for $85 before tariffs. Fortunately, anyway, so this is the 2 tubes together. This is now with the focuser attached, and this is first light. Right. Now this is an uncoated mirror. This is just the glass. That's taken, we took it out, Chris and Dave and I took it out, basically leaned it against a bench out here and focused on the moon and then on a star. This is with a 25 mm eyepiece and basically just holding my cell phone up against it to take the picture. So it focused. So now the mirror, I see we're back to the mirror again. The mirror could go on its merry way. So the mirror was sent to Majestic Optical Coatings in Rickersville, Virginia. It was sent on a Monday afternoon after it was all boxed up. It went out of I took it to the UPS in Tallyville. The UPS showed up in my front door on Saturday afternoon late. It came back in 6 days. So to do this, I built a box in a box. Here's the mirror in the inside box. This insulation came up over it on top, held it in nicely. Then the inside box went into another box with insulation on all sides. And there's the mirror when it came back. And that cost about $230 just to build the box. It was $185 to have him coat it and return it. And it cost me $30 to ship it. Okay. Close to the end of the story. All right, so the mount, cradle, altitude, bearings, rocker box, and you're going to see a brass friction strip. So let's move this out of the way. Okay, so available parts. The cradle was built with woods from a crate that would happen to be sitting in the shop. Okay. The sides, the front, the base were built with basically laminate, if you would, wood strips that are glued together that you can buy from Lowe's or Home Depot that are ostensibly 12 inches wide, but it's not a solid wood piece. It's glued pieces so it would be straight, and also it's cheaper. Okay, so the cradle was built, and so the tube just fit into it. The bearings are 6-inch. 1-inch wide by 6-inch diameter PVC pipe, and reinforced then with wooden. Actually, that is from a solid board. Wooden cylinders, if you would, circles that were built or cut to fit into that and then glued in place. Teflon pads to hold it. The sides, the front, the base. You're going to see later, all are designed to screw together and disassemble. It takes about 5 minutes to put this thing together, maybe 7 if I'm not in a hurry. Okay, so there's a brass strip around the right side, and there's a knurled screw right there. And so the idea behind that was it provides friction so that you can adjust, by adjusting the friction, you can adjust the weight of the eyepiece you want to use, either a 2-inch or 1 1/4. And get it to hold in place. And it actually does. Works pretty well. Okay. So here's the base. The base is, again, it's the same kind of material, same kind of wood. If there's a bearing here, a 1/4 inch bolt, the bottom side is coated with RFP that I got from Chris Myers. Thank you, Chris. And there are 6 Teflon pads that it rides on. So again, this all unbolts. It's the first job is to sit this down and screw this on, and then you just start screwing it together. So it disassembles into 7 parts: the top 2, the bottom 2, which with the cradle. And the cradle is screwed on; it can't be moved. We've screwed it so that it would know that it'd be balanced properly, and that way I didn't have to worry about it ever shifting on me. Okay, so then there's the rocker box. Like I said, the right, the left, the center, the bottom part, and the ground board. Now, they all fit in the car. The ground board, you can see the foot sticking out from this part of the back of my SUV. And then here are the sides and the bottom and the front. And then here are the tubes that go in. So the last part's the finder scope. Running out of time, and I actually like the Telrads when I've used them here, and so I just bought a Telrad from Amazon. Now,
I think they make a riser that's even taller than that.
they made it 2 inch. And by the way, the riser cost almost as much as the telescope.
I've never seen one like that. That's cool.
Now, I learned this again by trying telescopes here, and I have a hard time getting my head to go down and be able to see out the Telrad. So it turned out that you can buy an extender, okay, for a ridiculous sum of money for that plastic extender, but it actually works. Okay. So there's a Freudian slip here.
Mm.
Okay, that should say 24. It seemed like
Mm.
3. I noticed that today, actually.
That's funny.
All right, so it started in February 24 and it was finished on July 17th. And then it went off to cellophane. Now, part of the reason to get it done by July 17th was because cellophane started on the 25th. So that was actually a very good thing to have as a kind of a deadline to push me to get this done. So I entered in the optical competition, and believe it or not, I won first place.
Let me say something. I was part of the judging committee. I recused myself from judging
He
the
didn't
scope.
judge my-
Okay. When it was judged, one of the persons is Phil Brownsville. Phil Brownsville made part of the optics that fixed the Hubble, and he made the optics that went on the Pluto mission to Pluto. He's a master's optician. And Phil said that was the best mirror on the site that night and near perfect.
Awesome, you're here.
When he judged.
So they convinced me to end. I wasn't planning to do this. They convinced me, the Stellophane organization people convinced me to enter it in the mechanical competition the next day. So I did. And I won 3rd place for craftsmanship and tied for 3rd place for mechanical design. Oops. Okay. So they basically, there were 2 of us. They couldn't tell who should be 3rd, so they just gave us both 3rd. Which is fine, thank you. Cool. Anyway, and so now it's already been to the outreach on August 29th, where I had a great time. Again, I can put it together, move it. Here you can see the screw that holds the top tube in place to the bottom tube. I got another 10 seconds. Anyway, the most important thing here is I realized after having a whole bunch of little kids come up and look at the moon that I needed a step stool, which Jim provided. So I learned something else. Okay, so now I've got a step stool to bring with it. Anyway, that's what I did last summer. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff. And congratulations.
Wonderful.
Next up, let's take a little break from things. Rob Lancaster. So hopefully this loads.
Yep. And then click slide shift.
Took a trip to. Well, I won't tell you where. I'll let him. Uh-oh.
Supposed to be that.
I'll let him tell you where he went.
And then let's turn that up just slightly, I think. There we go, that should be pretty good. All right, so I went on a trip with my wife to Scotland this summer. It was very nice. I will tell you first of all that I've been to Scotland once before, around 2004, so about 20 years ago. And I really got a nice taste of it the first time, but it was a very short taste, just for a couple days, just in the big cities, and then a little trip on a bus through the Highlands. And I'm like, I need to go back. I need to see this again. I want to go hiking. And so I convinced my wife to go, even though she was like, I don't know, it rains a lot there. And yeah, so I had to fight her on that one, but she really liked the adventures and animals and stuff like that she'd be able to see. So it wasn't too hard of a sell. Why is this not advancing? There we go. All right, the first thing I should point out is this isn't too much of an astronomy talk because we were traveling in the middle of July. And if you look at the sun graph for that area of the world, there's no night on that day. There's no astronomical twilight. And the nautical twilight is just for a couple hours, and it was really after we'd gone to bed. I don't think I saw a single star, even though it was clear several nights. I saw nothing. So not much astronomy, but I did some after I got back, as you'll see. The thing that we got that was really lucky was the weather.
Yikes.
It was forecast to rain every single day of our trip. Did it? Nope. If you take a look at this, most of the days were unusually sunny and beautiful weather. And it even got up to 82 on the one day. And I would say the other days were just very pleasant for hiking. We were kayaking on one of these 2 days, as you'll see. And so we were able to go with like swimsuits, and it was very comfortable. And the other days we were hiking, we were comfortable just in normal like jeans, t-shirts, and good outdoor wear. It was pleasant the entire time. There were a couple days when there was a little rain. When we first got there, we were getting off the plane, we saw some rain. And then when we were driving on like the 9th, and then we were driving on the 14th, and then at the very end, we got a tiny bit of rain at the last place, but it enhanced our pictures of the flowers, so it was good. So for our trip, we went to the northern part of the UK, as you could see here, and we went to Edinburgh first, and then we drove up to Fort William second,
You got a pointer back
and
there,
then we
Rob, if
went
you
to,
want.
oh, this is fine.
Okay,
It's more dramatic.
there you go.
Then we went up to the Isle of Skye for the last part of our trip. We spent the vast majority in this area up here of all the beautiful mountains and valleys and beautiful terrain. So that's what we were mainly going for. We started the trip though in Edinburgh, and we stayed there just a couple days. The key point was to get there and to get adapted to the time, so we didn't have jet lag when we went driving for multiple hours and fall asleep on the road. So you can see we saw a number of interesting things while we were there. Botanical garden was really nice. Went to Edinburgh Castle. I'd seen that the previous time, but I really liked it and wanted to see it again. The Scott Monument, we went up in that. The Royal Mile is a wonderful thing to see while you're there. Saw the Scottish Parliament, walked around Carlton Hill, and Holyrood Park and Arthur's Seat.
Johnny Walker.
I did not, but I couldn't delete it. Go away. I don't even know what that is. To be honest, I have no idea where that came from. Not mine. All right. So here, this gives you a sense of the couple days that we were on that part of our trip. As you can see, this day we were just kind of walking around. It did rain a little bit on this day, but it was just like a mist, and it was actually kind of comfortable, so it was fine. This was the day we were up in Edinburgh's Castle and hiking on Arthur's Seat. And we did the Botanical Gardens on this day, and we did Mary King's Close, which I would highly recommend. It's kind of a touristy thing, but that was really cool. And then we drove away on that next day. I would highly recommend, if you're going to Scotland, you do have to go to Edinburgh and see the Royal Mile. I do believe that Edinburgh is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I thought that the previous time, and my mind has not changed. It's just gorgeous. So here's a couple photos that I took in Edinburgh at night. After just a bit of rain, like I said, it enhanced the photo, made it look even cooler. And this is the main reason that I wanted to go back to Scotland. It's just so beautiful, like all the grand vistas and the hiking is just stellar. Let's get a little astronomy in it. Here is me up near Arthur's Seat. This is at the lower part though. I didn't include the actual picture from Arthur's Seat because I think this one's actually cooler. You can see the castle along with me up on a thing. It's kind of cool. So, yeah. Here's a couple of photos of us walking around the city. One reason to visit Edinburgh and Scotland in the summer is everything is in bloom. There are flowers everywhere. So that's really cool. There are bagpipers playing in the streets. So if you like bagpipe music, which my wife does, it's cool and a lot of fun. This is Carlton Hill. This is Arthur's Seat. And there's the Scott Monument over there. So just a couple photos around the area. That little bit of rain we got that first day gave us a beautiful rainbow. As I said, the flowers are just gorgeous this time of year. So I did take a number of photos of flowers. Then I rented a car. There are some caveats to renting a car in Scotland. You do have to be careful to drive on the left side of the road. You do have to make sure to study the street signs. They are different from the ones in the US. And of course, you have to be careful every time you're like turning or passing because it is different. But I will say, I anticipated and was worried that I'd have trouble with this, but I had no issue at all.
And is the wheel on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only issue that I'd say I had was sometimes I had trouble keeping the car in the center of the lane. Like I drift to the other side because of what I'm used to. But I never had an issue going the wrong way around a roundabout or passing a car or going around a turn or anything like that. And I would say the signs were actually a little easier in the US once you get used to them. And I would say one really nice thing that I liked a lot is that the roundabouts meant that you could drive through these towns and you never stopped. You never had to hit the brakes. You just keep going and going. And the traffic just flowed. So I would say that was cool.
Rob, did
Yeah.
you have to drive a stick or was it?
No, I purposely rented an automatic. Yes.
My younger son
Yeah.
and daughter-in-law got married and spent 2 weeks in Scotland. They drove a stick.
Yeah, that's a lot. That would be more stressful. And I did own a stick when I first got a car, but I didn't want extra stress. So I made sure it was an automatic. Yeah. 3 hours later, we actually arrived in the Fort William area. And in the Fort William area, you'll notice that the scale is a lot larger because now we have a car and we can drive to all these cool places. So you see there's a number of cool things we did. This is a train ride that we took up to Lake. I would highly recommend that. It goes past the Glenfinnan Viaduct, which I'll talk about in a minute. We stayed right about here, which is north of Fort William. We stayed right next to Neptune's staircase, so we could walk from our hotel to go see that. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. We stayed pretty close to Ben Nevis, which is the highest mountain in Scotland. My wife really wanted to hike to the top of that, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. We did that kind of thing when we were in Yosemite last summer, and we climbed up Half Dome, and I'm like, I don't want to do that again. I was exhausted for the next 5 days. So let's not do that one, please. So she did agree to that, and we did some other things instead. But we saw the Steel Waterfall, which was one of the highlights. I love the Valley of Glencoe. We did that. This down here is a little tour that we did that I'll talk about in a few minutes, but it went to a number of cool places from Boban. So here is the list of what we did in that region. After we got there, we just kind of had dinner and walked down to Neptune's staircase. The next day, we took the train to Mallaig over the Glenfinnan Viaduct. And one thing I would say is this is reported to be the most beautiful train ride in the world. And I do think it was quite pretty. One thing that I would say is we did not take the Jacobite steam engine. We took the ScotRail, which was a hell of a lot cheaper. And I would also say that it was nicer views because the windows are bigger and there's not many people on the train. So you can go to this window or that window and you're not bothered by them. So it's kind of nice. And we went up to Ben Nevis. We went part of the way up on the Ganaw and then we hiked around. We went to the Steel Waterfall, which was very nice. The next day we did kayaking. As I said, it was about 80 degrees that day, which was very pleasant for that. We did the Puffin tour that next day. And then we went hiking in Glencoe after that. So here's some photos. These photos were taken from our place. I took that from the bathroom. And that was out the window. This is Neptune's staircase, which is currently in operation. You know, you can take a boat up that series of locks to that higher location. It's in the Caledonian Canal. Here's the photo out of our kind of living space. It was from our bedroom. And you could see over here is just a nearby road. And I just want to point out, as you're driving among the different areas of Scotland, very, very frequently, you're driving right next to beautiful water, beautiful mountains on all sides for hours. It's just beautiful. You want to take a picture everywhere. So here is that glorious train ride. It was very beautiful. It passed so many different mountains and valleys and other things. This is the viaduct that I mentioned before. That's featured in the Harry Potter movie. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, that's it right there. That's the bridge they flew under. This is the Steel Waterfall, which was a surprise. Like we thought it would be cool, but it was way cooler than we even imagined. It was just absolutely gorgeous. My wife really liked this part when she could walk over this cable bridge, which was pretty cool. I did it as well. And then here's the actual waterfall. This is that kayaking day that I mentioned. My wife was all excited about it because it was kayaking to a castle, which was kind of unique. We did go up to this castle where we had lunch, but we couldn't actually enter the castle. It was an abandoned, derelict castle, but it was kind of cool still. You can see it's kind of falling apart, but it was pretty. Now, we had a dilemma for the puffin tour. We did wake up at the appropriate time and we drove an hour to get to Oban. It was something that my wife was really looking forward to. She was all about these puffins. She wanted to see the puffins. She wanted to go on the tour. It was a complicated tour because you had to take a ferry over to Cregnor. You had to drive in a bus all the way down to Fionfort, and then you had to get on another boat and go up to Staffa and Lunga, and then back to Iona, and then you had to go all the way back. So there was a series of things you had to do. Unfortunately, when we got to Oban, we were early. We were 45 minutes early, but the parking was very difficult. Went to one lot, no spots. Went to another lot, okay, we found a spot, but it says 3-hour parking. Went to another lot, couldn't figure out how to work the machine. Went to another lot, and we're like, there's nothing saying you can or can't park here, but it does say the number of hours. Are we gonna get towed? And so at this point, we had no time. Now I had a dilemma. What do we do? 1, let my wife go on the tour. 2, do I go on the tour and give her the keys? 3, just park and get on the tour and hope you don't get towed or fined. Or 4, skip the tour so you could do something else together. What do you guys think? This
I
is
see a photo of a puffin.
This is interactive. What do you guys think? Do A or B?
C.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'll tell you what we did end up doing. Yep. So here's what we ended up doing. We actually did A. I let her get off and get on the thing, and I said, I'll figure something out. So what did I do? Well, it took me a while, but I finally figured out the parking. I finally found a spot like an hour later. I found a lot and I figured out how to work the machine, and I did manage to park. And then I was walking around the town trying to figure out, okay, can I take the next ferry? I booked a ride on the next ferry. That'll work. And she talked to one of the people on the bus and they said, okay, we could probably take him. But then I found out that this building right here is actually the tour company that we booked with. And so I went to their office and said, is this actually going to work? Because she had talked to them at the bus and they said, yeah, I think we could do that. So I talked to them and they said, yes, it will work. Just take the next ferry and we'll get you on a very similar tour. And when we get over there, we'll have you meet up with them and you can continue the tour together. So essentially you can see here on the Isle of Mull, this is me. This is a screenshot of my phone showing me on the way to catch up to her. She's up here on Lunga. And the idea is you get here to Fionfort and then it goes up to Staffa. My tour did not go to Lunga. So I missed out on like an hour's worth of puffin viewing. But then she came back here to meet up with me on this island. And then we went back together. So it did end up working out and the tour wasn't that different. I just missed out on 1 hour of puffins. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. Here are some pictures from the tour. You could see one of the famous puffins, and Iona had some beautiful stuff, and there was a lovely cave on Staffa, so you can see those there. Here you can see some of the wildlife. There was some gorgeous wildlife visible on that tour. And so I have a number of photos of that. And this is what we did the next day, which was hiking in Glencoe, which I think is one of the most beautiful valleys in the world. It's just stellar. Here's another picture of us hiking in the Glencoe area. Then we went to the Isle of Skye. And in the Isle of Skye, we visited the ferry pools. We went to the lighthouse. We went to Dunvegan Castle. This is where we were staying. A lot of people stay in Portree, but we did not. We stayed here outside of that city. It's a lot cheaper. And as you'll see, it's better in some ways. We went to the Fairy Glen, the Kirang, and the nearby Yoda hike. Kilt Rock Waterfall, Brothers Point, and the Old Manor Stewart. And we actually visited this castle on the way out and this castle on the way in. So here's a list of what we did. Started off with the Eileen Donnan Castle and horseback riding. Went to the Kirang, Kilt Rock, and the Old Manor Store on the next day. Did the Fairy Glen, Yoda and the Three Brothers Point on that day. Did the Fairy Pools on this day. Then Vegan Castle on this day. And we did actually go to Loch Ness and Armadale Castle on the way back. So here's a photo of the horses and the horseback riding. And this was the first castle that we visited. This is the place that we stayed in the Isle of Skye. We were literally within walking distance to this hike. And what was really cool, we were the only ones on this hike. There was nobody else there. It was isolated. We had dinner in our hotel. It was a bed and breakfast. We just walked out, went for a hike. And that was really cool. It was beautiful. Here is what I thought to be the best hike that we did. My wife actually disagrees, but I love this place. This is the Currang. It was just huge vistas in all directions, the whole hike, and it is gorgeous. Here's some other photos of the Currang. There are so many photos, I could share them forever. This was the Old Man of Stour hike, and this is on the way up. And this is the famous Old Man of Stour and the surrounding countryside. And there's a photo of us in front of the Old Man of Stour, and this is the city of Portree in the evening, just after we hiked there. It was lovely, beautiful sunset, when we were doing our laundry. Now, I have a question, because again, this is interactive, and I'm gonna take a vote here. Which one are you most likely to see while you're hiking in Scotland? How many think mosquitoes? One. How many think sheep? Okay, that's a lot. How many think snakes? Two. How many think poison ivy?
Catchment took care of that.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing.
Same thing.
Here's the answer. There is no poison ivy in that whole area. There's only one species of snake.
So you say
Only
one
one.
snake.
Only one species. There are no mosquitoes. And I would say one of the weirdest things that I saw when I was there is everybody just left their windows open. There were no screens, no anything, because there was nothing coming in. It was sweet, I will say. My wife did take a lot of pictures of the sheep. I took a couple, but on every hike, there were dozens and dozens and dozens of sheep just all over the place. It's nature's lawnmower. This is the Fairy Glen, which was a gorgeous hike with lots of interesting terrain. And here is some of the stuff toward the end of that hike. This is a labyrinth she got lost in. And here's a mountain she climbed. Here we have the Three Brothers Point, which also was a gorgeous destination that we hiked to. These are the famous fairy pools. I just had a couple of them here, but it was waterfall after waterfall after waterfall after waterfall. It's very cool. And this is Dunvegan Castle, which is gorgeous castle and gardens. The castle inside was lovely, but I don't think they let you take pictures in there. So we didn't do that. But outside, they had lots of beautiful flowers in the gardens. And as I said, it had just rained, so the pictures came out really cool. This is Nice Point Lighthouse, that's Armadale Castle, and this is from Dunvegan Castle. I did do a little bit of astronomy this summer, after I got back and before I left. So here's some photos that I did.
Let's cruise
Yep.
through this.
I'm just about done. Yep. And these photos that you see here, I did learn some processing techniques when I was doing them, and that's pretty cool. There's another one that I did this summer. And here's some photos of the sun that I did this summer. And this is a really cool thing that we saw on a Tuesday night. It came out of nowhere. It was a rocket plume that did just this amazing thing.
Video. Was cool.
Dude, awesome. So we'll hear more in a few minutes. And to conclude, here's a lovely picture of the Vale and me at Woodside.
Thank you, Rob. And in what only seems to me like a natural transition, we will go from Scotland to Scott Jackson.
Mine will be short.
Thank you. Yeah, get us back on track.
All right, so, whoa, this is.
Oh, yep, sorry. Obstacle course. Come on down.
So, some of you may know I have a seismometer, so I'll talk about catching quakes. And then I ended up with some 3 raw cherry wood. And what do you do with raw cherry wood? So we actually had an 8.8 magnitude earthquake on July 29th. And so it was a piece of cake to see on my seismograph. I have a figure merit that This came out at about 40,000, anything about a value of about 1,000, I can see, and sure enough, you can see the primary, secondary, and then these things are the characteristic long waves or surface waves right here. And so this is on the other side of the Earth. This is in Russia. Here's the peninsula coming off of Alaska. So that's pretty cool. But 8.8, I knew I'd be able to see. What I was surprised at is that a little bit later on, there was a 6.8 magnitude earthquake on August 3rd. This is July 29th, so this is an aftershock. And I sort of showing these, this is where the earthquake happened. And so the primary waves come first, then the secondary, then the long waves. Same thing here. This happened in about 38 minutes after 1 a.m. And here's the primary, secondary is showing up here. And then again, you can see the very characteristic long wavelength for the surface wave. So this was 6.8 magnitude, and actually it was below my figure of merit. It was about 300 or 400. So I was very surprised that I actually saw it. So probably because the cat wasn't doing anything in my basement. Okay. So I get free cherry wood. I get a free Pelican case. And what do? And do a lot of woodworking. You end up with a suitcase telescope. So I was down in New Zealand in a little over a year ago. No, in December of last year. And I remember going out. It was an extremely dark night. It was at Franz Josef Glacier. And I had a pair of binoculars. I could see the large and small magellanic clouds. I said, damn it all, I wish I had a suitcase telescope. And then lo and behold, ended up with this free Pelican case and this free wood. I said, I think I could do something with this. And so I made a 6-inch f4 suitcase telescope. It looks really, really beautiful. I know Greg and Dave have seen it at the Chesmont one. So it works. It's pretty nice. And then I had another telescope that I had floating around. It's a 4.25-inch 5. And here's my sketch for the design of it. And it actually becomes a box, and then there's 3 poles. It's like, what the heck's going on? It becomes this. So another sort of suitcase telescope. And so again, all out of cherry wood. It's quite beautiful, to say the least. And that's the end.
Cool.
So that was great.
Thank you, Scott. All right, go wherever you'd like. Yeah, you have no visuals, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So our next speaker actually requires a little bit of introduction. Ava is actually one of our newer members. I believe you joined maybe, springtime. So she's actually a junior at Cab Calloway High School, which is interesting because that's a high school that specializes in the arts. She's specializing in piano. But she also has a very strong technical background. As a junior, she's taking physics and calculus and all kinds of amazing stuff. And I believe she said you're also doing independent research on exoplanets, right? Yeah. So, really well-rounded. And so she's got an exciting opportunity over the summer at Wallops Island. So yeah, all yours.
I was a camp counselor at Virginia Space Flight Academy at Wallops Island. So part of the thing that we got to do was throughout the weeks, we got to tour the NASA flight facilities at Wallops, which is really cool. We got to see a bunch of different facilities. I wish I had pictures, but we weren't allowed to take pictures, but there was a lot of really cool stuff we got to see. One of the places we visited, my personal favorite was the Sounding Rockets facility, because we both got to tour the manufacturing side of it and the testing side. So like the manufacturing, there's just like a bunch of machinery where they constructed, I forget what portion of the Sounding Rockets, I think it was the lower parts of it. But anyway, they had it's really cool to see the process, because it was these really thick cylinders, and over time you could see how they slowly kind of warped into actual parts of that you could put into a rocket. And then another thing, I wish I brought it, but they had kind of a high pressure water thing to cut stuff really finely, and they gave us keychains. And I have a keychain, but I forgot to bring it. And so another part was the testing. There's a lot of interesting things there. One thing was this big kind of padded room where they would just deploy the payloads and make sure everything worked. And another one was literally they would just put the rocket on and then just shake it to see if it would fall apart. Because it was supposed to just represent the amount of force and turbulence you'd see in a flight. That was my favorite facility that we toured. Another place was, I think it was like the scientific balloon facility. So it's almost like weather balloons, but like much larger, and it would take, scientific payloads, mainly in like astrophysics, up into like the atmosphere. A few other places, we went to like mission control, we went to the launch pad, we saw like where we saw Rocket Labs. So does anyone know Rocket Labs? No? Okay. I don't know. So they're kind of like a private company where other companies can like hire them to send payloads up. At the moment, they only have this smaller rocket called the Electron, but they're working on a new rocket called the Neutron, which is much bigger for larger payloads. And we got to tour that. That was top secret, so like we couldn't really see what was inside, but we got to tour where they're building the Neutron rocket, which was pretty cool. I probably have more I could talk about, but that's all I can think about at the moment. So
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I can't think of a clever punny transition from that. So, well, let's do Massacre Rim. Andy. I think the only more interesting place than Massacre Rim for us locals is Slaughter Beach.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you get both of those in on the same summer.
I discovered there was no massacre there.
Ah,
No, there was. one
Get your money
report,
back.
But all the reports were untrue.
Andy, all yours.
The great good fortune of living in Eugene, Oregon for 8 years, which is out by the Oregon Outback and not too far from northern Nevada, where they have recently established a new international dark sky sanctuary, which is rated as, depending on the day, the darkest spot in the United States. So, and depending on the day, I was fortunate this summer to have friends who decided that they wanted to see me again. So they bought me a plane ticket to come back to Eugene. And we had been planning a trip to Massacre Rim ever since they had established it and never got there. And it took me leaving before we ever got there. So what is Massacre Rim? Massacre Rim is this very Australia-shaped ridge in northern Nevada in Washoe County. It was opened as an international dark sky sanctuary in 2019. It's 101,000 acres, and as you can see, it's quite a bit away from any major cities whatsoever. So we planned for 4 nights in Massacre Rim, and it wasn't nearly enough. It was this says about a 6-hour, 12-minute drive. We made it in 5.5 without breaking any laws of any note, at least not in the Oregon side, we didn't. But you can see its location. There's a pointer here somewhere.
There's yep.
Yep, there we go.
Actually, if you use the mouse, the folks online will be able to see it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, right here. Here is the border of California, Oregon, and Nevada. And our route took us through what's called the Modoc Plateau of California, which is this area here, and into the Surprise Valley, which was surprisingly not as interesting as its name might lead you.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, that actually is a surprise.
Surprise. Foreign.
So at the end of your drive, you wind up, if you come in from the California side, you wind up in Cedarville, which is the most sizable community on this map and is a town of 800 people. Eagleville is about 100 people. Via is a ghost town. There are a couple of Airbnbs in Via, and guess what they get used for? Astronomers, because they're the only people that want to go to that part of Nevada. I spent with one of our other brave expeditioners. We spent 2 nights in Cedarville. The other people spent all 4 nights in Via at one of the Airbnbs. And the Cedarville area was very interesting. There's basically only one public place to stay. The Sunrise
or surprise motel. And the surprise there was that it was actually pretty nice. It was $86 a night cash, no cards. And while we were there, we happened to be in the middle of a 50-year class reunion of people from all over that area. And a bunch of them were staying there, and they said, hey, you guys need to come on down and hang out at our class reunion. There's going to be a giant barbecue. And I thought it would have been really funny if we had gone down and hung out at this class reunion with these folks that we had no idea who they were, especially because the guy that I was hanging out with is about 6'5" and about 320 pounds. And everybody would have been saying, hey, where did this guy come from?
You pretended you were from the class and nobody remembered you.
There you go. I was the quiet kid that sat out in the hallway most of the time. That would have been true too. But yeah, 80 something dollars a night, or it was $20 to put up an RV. So if you're ever in that area, that's where you want to stay, unless you want to pay for the Airbnbs. But that's the hotel. And this is why you go. Wow. Because you're right in the middle of this area they call the Oregon Outback. Up here, here's Eugene. This is the Eugene area. Our regular observing site is over in here. Usually isn't quite as good. All across the country, the air glow and the solar maximum and all of those sorts of things, especially with the forest fire smoke out in that area, you're not getting nearly the potential that the map shows. But down in this area, you are looking at a long drive to fill up your car and no internet whatsoever. So this is Cedarville right here, I believe. And Massacre Rim was about a 45-minute drive.
So where is the Oregon Star Party held?
Oregon Star Party is held up over in this area up here on Indian Trail Spring in the Ochako National Forest. I went once while we lived there, and it was about 600 people.
Okay.
Which is interesting, and it's kind of fun to go to once or twice, but you know, you're camping out here where in sky's almost as dark, less than an hour from home. I get done, I pack up, I go home, take a shower, go to sleep. You know, here you're kind of out in the dust, and the dust is everywhere up there. So yeah. So this is what it looks like on the drive out to Massacre Rim for miles and miles and miles and some kilometers on top of that. But this is northern Nevada. And as you can see, the sky is not as clear as you would hope for being out there. And in fact, the sky was not as clear as we hoped 3 of the 4 nights that we were there. But we did have some success and lots of panoramas, because this is it. There's a real beauty to this area that isn't anything like Scotland or, you know, anything you'll find out here in the East, but there's something about it that, you know, you think, okay, I can see why people would come out here. The giant dust devil that we saw from several miles away, those were a regular occurrence. There were lots of little ones all the time. This one was kind of interesting because it went all the way up that we could see. And you find very little labeling out there in that area, because you'll see 2 or 3 cars on your drive out there, and then at night, nothing, which is exactly what you want. But, you know, hope you don't have your car break down on you while you're out there either. One of the darkest places in the world, it is, very much so, at least on land. And they were nice enough to include a planisphere permanently mounted on the sign. I think the most interesting thing about these signs is that they are literally out in the middle of nowhere. There's a drive loop that you drive up to. Hey, there's something up there. There's a sign pointing this way. And you get out there, this is what it's pointing to. And we had discussions about where are we going to observe at this place? And I was like, anywhere. There's nowhere. There's fenced in land for cattle pasture, but other than that, it's entirely open. You find a place, you drive down the road. Oh, this looks good.
Is it BLM land?
It's BLM
Yeah.
land. And we were fortunate. One of our guys had done a little bit of a recon. He did an overnight trip, drove down one day and drove back the next day. And said there's a gravel pit along the main east-west road there that looks like it'll be really good. And that's where we observed the whole time. It was big enough, we could have probably put 50 cars in that. But we had two 18-inch scopes, a 20-inch and an 11-inch between the four of us that went. And lots of open sky. Some interesting wildlife. Quail everywhere, or bobwhite, I'm not sure which. I never did bother to look it up. As we were driving in one night, we were chased by a calf who was booking it like a greyhound and couldn't ditch him at 30 miles an hour. And he was staying behind us. His mom nodded our direction as we passed, like she was coming after us, and he took off. So lots of hares out in the road, and they made it kind of an obstacle course driving home at night because they would just bolt right out into the middle of the road when they saw your headlights coming. Did not actually see the petroglyphs, but there are quite a few of them there. That's obviously not my photograph. Obsidian, jasper, lots of, if you're into rock hounding, there's all sorts of interesting stuff out that way. I brought actually a bunch of it home, which I shouldn't have done, but I did anyway. The signs don't get updated there very much because there's not much to update, and there's really only the wind and the dust to make anything out of them. So this sign's been there quite a while. We did check out one of those places, which I'll get to, but the other ones remain mysterious. So this is the actual drive along Massacre Rim to the north. We stayed south of the rim itself. That's a 1,200 foot sheer height that you're going to. It's actually steeper than it looks from this particular direction. It's 101,000 acres. They recommend that you use an extreme vehicle for getting up there. So I'm thinking a backhoe or something of that nature. Our guy who did the recon drove up there and came back and bought new tires right away. And he was in a pickup truck, so he had the clearance and everything. But yeah, don't recommend driving up there unless you're really, really in the mood for an excursion. But this was the road past it. And it's desert, but there are a lot of areas that do fill up with water. We had thunderstorms almost every day we were there, so there was a lot of rain to fill up. This was Calcutta Lake here on the way north. And when you drive far enough north, you eventually come to the border of the Sheldon National Antelope Refuge, which provided some interesting trekking. Did not see any antelope. This is our second time. Cheryl and I went through it a number of years ago when we were living in Oregon, but didn't get over to Massacre Rim. We came into the Sheldon from the opposite side. But apparently there are antelope, pronghorn antelope, and other kinds of antelope that run through there. Lots of birds of prey, lots of animals of prey too. And this was the headquarters of, not really the headquarters, it was abandoned, but it's the first outpost in the Sheldon. And you can see Massacre Rim to one side and the open valley on the other. This was at the very top of the highest point in the Sheldon Antelope Refuge. This was about 1,300 feet elevation, and this building is used. There's a radio tower just beyond here where we were parked, and the valley, more than 1,000 feet below. Thunderstorms brewing. Again, this was our last day, and the couple that I was with that day, one guy wound up having to go back to Eugene. But I said, let's take the car up to the top of that. And it was a little Toyota light duty SUV that, yeah, I think the repair bills are gonna be more than the cost of the entire trip. And yet another view. I had a short 360-degree movie that I took from up there with the lightning and everything, but it was a 12-megabyte file, so I didn't put it. There's the radio tower. There's a sign. This is the little building that was in the back. And there's a sign there that says, danger radio waves. We thought, okay, this is where we had our picnic, right there next to this sign that said danger radio waves. Here's
They know what broadcast power is.
yeah. This was the actual spot. And you can see one of the dishes is over here. But the view is unbelievable from up there. And temperatures never got above about 83 while we were there. The far off thunderstorm that actually came our way, that thunderstorm lasted for about 8 hours. And as it got dark, we were watching it creeping closer and closer and closer, and thought a really smart thing to be out here with an 18-inch f5.5 Dobsonian. That's the tallest thing out here in the desert, except for the ladder that I was standing on. And it actually, after an unbelievable 2 or 3 hour lightning display at night, it petered out right before it got to us. So we were very fortunate. Was the trip worth it? I think it was worth it.
Whoa.
We hit 21.93 the first night, and there is a caveat on that because the first night was lots of clouds with little bits of Milky Way peeking through, and this was taken in one of the cracks in the clouds. And so it's probably very much affected by the clouds themselves. You know that it's dark when a cloud comes over and it swallows the entire sky. The clouds were like looking into a black hole. You know, you see clouds here at night and they're lit up from underneath. It was like something had just swallowed up the universe. And there's just no way to describe when a massive cloud comes over that just eats up everything, and you're thinking all the stars have gone out. You know, there's no light glow from the ground, and there's nothing coming through from above. And then where the edges of the clouds were, you could see the Milky Way breaking through, and it was like a wave of white clouds passing over. But the last night we were there, we only hit 21.5. So, which is right. So dark enough. It's probably what, a 19 or so here. That's pretty remarkable. It's like out in the middle of the ocean, darkness. And one other thing that I had happen this summer, my very first Sky and Telescope article was published in the August 25 issue. What happened? Blast my own trumpet here like Maynard Ferguson. So page 58, if you've got the magazine, go back and see what a lousy writer I am.
Yeah.
But that's the first half of it. Second half will come out this coming summer. And I just submitted an article for the February 26 issue that'll be out that is a significantly longer article than this one. It's
So cool.
the first of 3. All you got to do is propose a topic, and they'll say send it to us.
Oh, interesting.
It's not. Don't even have to show that you're a great writer. So
Now you're famous.
what's that?
Now you're
Now
famous.
you're famous.
Now I'm famous. Yeah, I actually had to have them change my name on there because they were using the formal. But yeah, it was a fun process, and I hope the second one was due yesterday, and I hope that one goes just as easily.
Thank you.
All right. I'm always a fan of symmetry. So it's nice to end as we began. So, Chris, that should be your cue. And I think this one's yours.
That is my
And-
presentation. Yep.
Bill, we'll save you. We'll save yours. Yeah.
So, I also built a 10-inch Dobsonian. I will say, first off, that I did not grind my mirror, so most of this was learning how optics work, where to place everything, and how to actually build the construction of a telescope. So this process started back in 2022. On a telescope forum post, someone made a post saying, I have a bunch of mirrors, send me a message, and I'll send you one for the cost of shipping. So I paid $25 for a mirror. They had various sizes, various qualities of optics, various conditions. Some, I think all these have mirror coatings. He did some other postings that had blanks, but I was thinking I would like to build a 10-inch Dobsonian solid tube. If I build a bigger solid tube Dobsonian, it's gonna be too much to handle. And I already have an 8-inch scope, so I want to go 10-inch. I think he had two 10-inch mirrors. And there was a faster one. This one was f5, about 5.5. The other one was f5.4, or sorry, 4.5. And I said, I'll take the faster one. And he told me that this one had a better finish, better optics. So he said, if you're fine with that, I'll send you that one instead. So I got the one with better optics, a little slower, but good enough for me. So once I sent $25 and a few days later, got a new telescope in the mail, or sorry, a new mirror in the mail. Still needed the rest of the telescope. I took a flashlight to it, realized it had a ton of sleeks on the coating. It looked like, I'm going to guess that someone took a microfiber cloth or Windex and paper towel. So the previous owner did not treat it well. But it was made by an optician in Arizona named Mike Spooner. Apparently he makes really good optics, but just in case, I brought it to Dave Grosky, who was nice enough to test it out for me. And apparently it passed the test. It looks good enough. So this is at the club getting the mirror tested. Then it was on to creating the plans and purchasing supplies. So I had never built a scope. I hadn't really done much research into it. I knew I wanted a solid tube. So I went to the Stellafane website and they have general plans on how to make a Dob. I followed that closely and then built my design off of that. I reached out to some other club members, got tips from them, made my own plans, read Cloudy Nights forums, and kind of created a mismatch of a design based on what my needs are. And I made this design probably 50 different times, making changes to it. It was definitely analysis paralysis. But I eventually, my other goal of this was got the telescope mirror, and I want to build the telescope for as little cost as possible. But I want all of the parts to be as high quality as possible. And I'm in no rush, which meant buying things used off Facebook Marketplace and Cloudy Nights Classifieds. So I was in a work truck for work going up to Connecticut, and I found some warehouse selling cheap sonotube in 12-foot sections, which was great. So I could have, I didn't want to buy two shorter lengths and combine them together. I wanted one simple piece because I wanted it simple because I don't know what I'm doing. And I found someone selling, some farmer in the middle of New Jersey selling 3/4-inch cabinet grade plywood for $10 a half sheet. So I was like, great, I can load that into my truck for work, get it home, and then be on my way. So yeah, once I had that, it was time to buy more supplies. So yeah, looking at Cloudy Nights Classifieds, their ATM parts and such page, every single day waiting for things to show up. Like I needed a secondary mirror. I could have made a secondary mirror like a spider, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I wasn't a member of the club at the time. So I was just saying, I'll buy a used one when it comes up. and various other parts. And I actually joined the club at some point since 2022 and was able to get a focuser and from a club member, and I was able to get some free Teflon, which was, I knew would go into it too. But then more time passed, a few years, then I had all the supplies, and I finally decided that I had time to make it. Mainly at the time I was working for the Delaware Geological Survey at the University of Delaware, and they have the University of Delaware has a makerspace, which means they have tons of tools that I could use. I can set up some tools in my garage, like a router, but I don't have a table saw, I don't have a bandsaw. So I would go there during my lunch break, and I'd have about 45 minutes to get there, make my measurements, and make a few cuts, and get back to work. But that is where what I did this summer starts. So I started that this winter, but I had a deadline of end of June, because my grant funding was not getting approved, which meant I lost access to their makerspace at the end of June. So it was get as much done as I can before that point. So after lots of planning and testing and using online calculators, I finally figured out where I should mount the mirror in the tube. And so the first thing to do was because I had a 12-foot section of tube, I cut it in half and I had two 6-foot sections. So I decided to do all my practice cuts and measurements and everything else on the uglier piece of tube. This had a dent in it, and I was like, perfect. I'll drill tons of holes in it, use that to figure out exactly where I need to put the mirror, do all my testing, practice, drilling through a tube. I don't know how to drill through a cardboard tube. So this was just my practice section. So it looks like Swiss cheese now, but it was super handy. And the first thing I did was stick the mirror where my measurement should be, put it directly on the ground facing up, hopefully that there will be a star that I can see, and test focus. And sure enough, it came to focus. One of the issues is that I didn't have the mirror, or I didn't have the height of it properly set. And I think there was one of my eyepieces that couldn't reach focus. So I knew I had to adjust the position of the mirror by about a 1/4 inch, some direction. I forget which way it was at this point.
Actually, probably.
Oh yeah, up and down. Yes, that is correct. With the tube I bought, it's one of those cardboard tubes. The one I have is very thin, and I was worried about flexure. So one of the options was to take my trash cardboard Swiss cheese tube and insert that fully into the other tube to have basically double layers. But my mirror is close to 2 inches thick. It already weighs a ton. I don't want this thing to weigh more than it has to. So I went through various thoughts on how to reinforce it. I ended up going with just a few strips of cardboard tube. So each one of these strips in here, I want to use the mouse so people online can see. I think I have 4 of these strips that encircle on the inside of the tube that are glued in with wood glue. So it adds a little rigidity without adding too much weight. Also for the outside of the tube, it has a wax coating. So I took a sander to that to get rid of that. And it would eventually be treated. Here's treating the tube. I wanted it to be water resistant or waterproof. So I knew I wanted to treat it with some like polyurethane or some sort of material. And I was hoping that whatever I added could also add rigidity. So I did a bunch of testing, and it turned out that dilute wood glue was able to Tight Bond 3, it's their waterproof one. I dilute it with water, do a ton of coats onto the tube so it actually can soak into the fibers, dry, add a little rigidity, and add some waterproofing. And then the inside of the tube, this is after 1 coat. I didn't take a picture when it's done. But that's, again, the ultra flat black spray paint on the inside to make it non-reflective. And actually what helped with that, when you pull out the wax liner on the inside, it kind of leaves a rough surface. So that is added benefit. With the rough surface and the ultra flat black, it's a pretty good dark interior. I may still put flocking paper in the future, but it's probably good enough for now. Then it went on to the tube cradle. Again, my analysis paralysis, constantly changing plans. I decided to go with an adjustable tube cradle. The question was, do I go with the cellophane method or the clamshell method that a lot of other club members used? I decided to go with the cellophane method because it is, I could use right angles. I didn't have to make an octagon, which you could use a square tube cradle with the clamshell. But the cellophane method, there's lots of plans online, so I can pretty much follow that pretty closely. And again, with trying to make this scope lighter, I cut speed holes in all of my parts. So I have also I got a router with a circle jig, so I was just having fun cutting circles in my basement. So there's something very satisfying about cutting nice circles. So here is going to be the base. I have my two sides with my trunnions and the bottom. And again, 3/4 inch plywood, it's pretty heavy stuff. So I ended up gluing it together with clamps everywhere, making sure it's nice and square. The plywood has a nice cherry veneer on it, but it had, because I got it used from some farmer, it had some gunk on it. It had some weird coating, so I sanded that off. It looked great, and I was like, cool, I'm going to stain this. It looked like, pardon my French, it looked like crap, in my opinion. There's blotchiness all over here after I stained it. So I decided that it's going to be painted. I haven't done it yet, but it will be painted, just a nice flat, probably a dark gray. Here are my trunnions, again, cut out very roughly in a, don't laugh at me, I didn't have the proper saw at this point.
You just toenail clippers?
Pretty much. I used one of those oscillating vibration saws and just like jammed into it really quick. And then I was able to come across a free table reciprocating saw, cleaned it up a bit, and then spent lots of time sanding. Again, for the scope, I wanted it to be high quality as possible. I want it to look really good. And I don't mind spending more time. So I spent lots of time sanding. So everything's nice and smooth. Here is part of a, so once we got the cradle, the next thing is the rocker box that the cradle sits in. Same thing, speed holes. It makes everything lighter. It could add a little flexure to the whole motion, which was a risk I was willing to take. And it seems to have paid off pretty good. There's a little flexure, but within my standards, I'm happy with it. My main goal was I care more about the smooth motion. I really like not having to push hard and having the scope move. I don't like a jerky scope. And a little flexure, I could try to fiddle with that. Or I could just rebuild it at some point in the future. So again, speed holes make it lighter because this thing is going to weigh a lot. First light, brought it out to my cul-de-sac. Just this is to test it out and make sure everything, it focuses, make sure it actually works, make sure the motion is okay. One of the things I found was that when you tilted up and down in the altitude motion, there was a little bit of rock, but it wasn't from flexure from any of the construction. So I was trying to figure out what was the issue. I found out for the ground board, you have I had three Teflon spacers, or what do you call it, bearings, and a center pivot. And I learned a trick that you could put some cut out washers of a milk jug to add a little bit of pressure to actually make it apparently easier to spin. I had added one too many washers, and it was, instead of having 3 points of contact on the bottom, had 4 points of contact in the center. During this is the Friday night lights at Cheslin. I was still, that night, I had some glue drying. I brought out my, some tools and I was making tweaks to the scope that day. And yeah, I took out one of the washers and made it a little better. One of the issues I was still having was balance. The scope, which I can talk about later, the scope would be fine, front and back because it's an adjustable cradle. I could always move the scope a little forward and backward, but I was having issues with it being back heavy when I was pointed at zenith. And my last slide goes into that a bit more. So things are again held on with packing or painter's tape because I didn't know how it's going to turn out. Another part of this scope is I wanted it to look like the first scope I ever used, which was my dad's Coulter Odyssey. it didn't, the scope that we had didn't have a finder scope, so you'd have to just lay down on the ground, aim the tube up. And so I could only find ever the planets, the moon, M13 and M57. But that got me into the hobby. So as an homage to that, I wanted a bright red tube. So yeah, this is after the first coat, still a little blotchy. I added another coat or two to it. And then this is at a Cheslin, just I think it was a Friday or Saturday night, just observing session. Again, still you can see my Telrad is taped on. I have a weight taped on to the bottom, still trying to tweak things. And you can see here, I have stained the cradle that I didn't like, and I learned my lesson and did not stain the rocker box. It's polyurethane. So I'm at some point going to paint the cradle, and I'm either going to leave the rocker box as wood or have it painted too to match, because I hate having wood, one paint, and a third paint. So unfortunately, I'll probably have to cover up the nice wood. So issues. I learned a lot. I learned some from my mistakes. So if I ever make another telescope, which I'm going to be building a 6-inch for my daughter, here are some things I learned. Balance issues that I'm still trying to figure out. I'm going to fine tune that. I need to fine tune my altitude friction. I use FRP and Teflon. It is like a physicist's dream. It's a frictionless surface. So I need to add a little friction. So I'm actually going to take a look at that little brass strip method on Jeff's scope, because I use some felt and I think it's a little too grippy. And because it's felt, it has a little give to it. So it has a little jerky motion, which I'm not a huge fan of. I tried without the felt. And even when I get the balance right, the issue is when I swap out eyepieces, just that a little bit of me fiddling with it makes the scope go up and down and I lose my object. So I need a little more friction. Right now, I have the, with your looking in the direction of the telescope, I have the focuser on the right-hand side, because I was thinking that I would like to pull the telescope towards me. Two issues with that is when I'm looking through the Telrad, I'm right-eye dominant, and my left eye is the one looking through the Telrad, which is like, I'll figure that out. It's a pain. I still think I might figure it out.
Get one of the 2-foot risers like Jeff has.
Get better, 3 foot.
Exactly. And also I was worried about sitting in a weird direction because my knee hitting it. So I might switch to the other side. I want to figure it out before I drill more holes. Other options are something I eventually need to do is recoat the primary. So I'm going to send it to Majestic, but it works good enough for now. I want to paint the rocker box and cradle, and I might add an accessory tray for some eyepieces and filters. I might make that like one I can take off and on, because again, I want it to be nice and clean looking. Here's the balance issue. Some diagrams stolen from posts on cloudy nights. So I've got my big heavy mirror at the bottom. Let me use the mouse so people. I've got my big heavy mirror at the bottom, and my focuser, my finder scope, and my Telrad all at the top. So the issue is your center of gravity is actually above my rotation point of the trunnions, because I put the center axis of my trunnions right along the center of the scope, but the issue is the center of gravity is above them, which is fine if you're pointing at the horizon, but as soon as you point it towards zenith, the thing's back heavy. And once it gets about maybe 70 degrees, the thing wants to automatically start tilting back. So my options are rebuild this cradle and put the trunnions up higher, which would require work and tools and doing a bunch of effort that I don't feel like doing. Pros, it'll look better, but I don't feel like going through the effort. Option 2 is magnetic weights or other weights where I'm just gonna get out in the field, slap them onto the appropriate part of the tube and call it a day. So probably what I'm gonna have to end up doing is sticking just a big heavy magnet up here. You could stick one down here, but the effect of it might not be as much. Basically, if I stick this diagram shows it here. If you stick your counterweight opposite the focuser, it will pull the center of gravity back down towards the center of the axis. But since I can always adjust the front of my or adjust where my tube is forward and backwards, I can get the center of gravity perfectly in line this way. All I have to do is just bring the center of gravity down. So just option is put a counterweight opposite my focuser, and finder, and just move the center of gravity more in axis with the center of the scope, which I think is gonna be my solution. So I'm probably gonna get some sort of magnet, which I'm testing out various magnets and prices and figuring out how I want to mount it.
Why magnet?
You know, I'm confused by the magnet.
Oh, so I can stick it on, take
But
it
your
off.
tube's cardboard.
Yes, I have little, like neodymium magnets that have screw holes I can screw into the cardboard and then stick a magnet to it. Or I get
Why don't you just put your fiberboard on the outside of your trunnion right there and then put something that presses up against it so you can adjust the friction?
I can adjust the friction, but I think it would still have the.
Well, let's talk about that offline.
Yeah, I was like, part of that is I'm open to ideas.
Yeah.
And I brought the scope and I am open to ideas of people who have more knowledge than me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the scope.
Cool. Well, thanks again, everybody. As Jeff and Chris both demonstrated, one of the advantages of a club is there's lots of knowledge and skills and tools. If anyone is interested in making a mirror and or building a scope, we can help you. So anyhow, thanks again to everybody. Per usual, we'll have our social hour in the library after this. Keep an eye on your email, keep an eye on the groups.io, and keep an eye on Friday night for the IO transit. Last thing, we were recording this video. Okay, let me end it.